Good evening, brothers and sisters. Yesterday, I reflected about faith. Faith is not what you see, but what you see through. In other words, faith expands our vision. Faith does not stop on the things that are visible, but the things that are visible invites us to a wider reality. And that is why there is also what we call the eye of faith. The eye of faith is that what ordinary, unfaithful, or faithless people cannot see. And today I would like to reflect about the opposite of faith, that is constrictive, that is imprisoning, that is fear, as the opposite of faith. The fear that is paralyzing. The fear that creates ghosts. It is oftentimes when we are afraid that we see a lot of ghosts. And perhaps people who are ghosting in this ghost month are people who are afraid, paralyzed. I remember when we were still seminarian, and at a certain point, there were some members in our class who claimed to have a third eye. And we visited a house. And in that house, we are 7 classmates. And the moment we entered the house, my second floor yung house, the moment we were there at the sala, yung dalawang classmate ko, na sabi nila may third eye daw sila, nag-usap at napapakinggan ko yung pinag-uusapan nila. Sabi ng isa, nakikita mo ba yung nasa taas? Sabi naman ng isa, yun ba yung nakaputi na tumitingin sa atin? At ako naman, wala naman akong nakikita sa taas, wala akong third eye. And because I could not see anything, I was paralyzed with fear. I was practically immobilized, realizing that actually ghosts are products of our fear. Very clearly, in the gospel of the day, Jesus was mistaken to be a ghost. Because the apostles were so afraid of what was happening around them, overwhelmed by the strong wind, overwhelmed by the storm, and out of the things that they are experiencing, they expanded their imagination into things which are paralyzing them. And so they failed to see the reality of God. They failed to see what is behind the strong wind. The bigger reality behind the wind is the reality of God. And after some time, Jesus calmed them down and told them, "Do not be afraid. It is I." In those words of Jesus, He invited His disciples to believe in Him. Hey, there is a bigger reality than the storms. There is a bigger reality than the darkness, the problems that we go through. And that bigger reality is God. Oftentimes when we get overwhelmed by our problems, by our storms, by our darkness, we fail to see through the God who is a bigger reality. And so momentarily, Jesus, as it were, opened their eyes of faith and introduced Himself. "It is I, your God. I tame your fear." And so Peter, recognizing now, little by little, removing little by little the fear and clearing the storm, allowing himself to see the bigger vision of God. "Jesus, allow me to go on water like you." And for a time, Peter started walking with Jesus. You know, this is very interesting. Because during the time of Jesus, the sea is figuratively the graveyard. It's like the cemetery. It's the place of the dead. Why? Because during the time of Jesus, there were so many accidents in the sea. And we know very well that in the sea, when there are accidents, people die there and they don't get them back anymore. And so with the many tragedies happening in the sea was kind of identified to be a graveyard, a place of the dead. And so when Jesus was walking on water, it was so clear that Jesus has power over the dead, has power over darkness. And so when Jesus invited Peter to walk also on water as the head of the church, we also see Peter now and the church having faith in Jesus. Only in our faith in Jesus can we walk on waters. But there was a time that he was disturbed. There was a rupture of faith, and fear crept in him. And so he started to sink. And he cried out, "Lord, save me. I am full of fears. I am full of doubts. I am overwhelmed by the things that I see." And Jesus stretched out his hand, his ready hand to help him. "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Jesus, I trust in you. This is also the prayer of the saint we celebrate today, Saint Peter Julian Amard, the founder of the Blessed Sacrament Fathers, who had a special devotion to the Eucharist. Every time we meditate, we adore the Eucharist. Every time we receive the Eucharist, we experience a faith that fills our life. Jesus inviting us, "Courage, it is I. Together, we can go through storms, darkness." And so, like Saint Peter Julian Amard, we are invited to put our trust in Jesus. To receive the Eucharist is to continue trusting the Lord, so that no storm, no darkness, no ocean could be an experience of fear, but an experience of faith. Amen.